Hello, everybody. Welcome to The Becoming Story, a space where real people share real journey. My name is Olabisi Gilbert, and today I have a very special doctor with me on seat, Dr. Bolawon Yusuf. Thank you so much for coming to The Becoming Story.
Oh,
It's a pleasure to have you here.
thank you for having me. I'm glad
Uh,
to be here.
all right. I know that you grew up in Mushin,
Yeah.
a place that has the stereotype
Yes.
of a kind of people and a kind of behavior. However, you are here, a doctor, saving lives, doing things, and so we want you to share your story. What was growing up like for you in that space? So I was growing up.
Okay. Thank you very much once again. Growing up was very interesting. So, first child, first grandchild, my mom, working mom, and the earliest memory of my child was spending Mondays to Friday with my grandmother,
Okay.
then the weekends with my mom. So my grandmother was a teacher. I used to go with her to school. And I think something happened and my dad brought me back. I have different versions of that story in my
Okay.
head, but I think it went something like the teacher in school either disciplined me for one thing, either I did or I didn't do, I can't remember. Then my aunties went to school to fight. Yeah. So, or
Wow.
to defend me. And my father was like, don't spoil my child. Come back. And then my dad, my mom was staying in Mushin and we started there and was interesting that as compared to others, I think we were a bit okay. I must say that.
Okay.
Yeah. And then one of the things my dad used to say is that he might not have so much to give to us as an inheritance, but education was one thing he was going to leave with us. And that was one. The other was honesty is the best policy. So very early in life, I kind of got the idea that my way out of that environment was education. How that was going to play out, I didn't really understand it, but I knew that. That was one part of my early childhood. The other part was that my mom, my grandparents, that's my mom's family, were like Christian royalty where we stayed
Okay.
in their house because they set up the church in that area. So my uncle became a pastor, my grandmother is a pastor. There's so many pastors in the family. So kind of find Christ early.
Wow.
Even though my understanding of Christianity was so much about be good so you don't go to hell. I still remember the evangelist that drums that into our ear, and I think it helped at the time. I think it was good instruction at that time, such that as a child, I tried to be the best person, best version of myself, because I didn't want to go to hell. Although later in life, which I'm probably going to explain, it kind of evolved to relationship with the Holy Spirit
Yeah.
and all of that. So as much as my dad did, I think primary school was private school in Mushin then. Secondary school GSS1, GSS2 was private school. I can remember we were asked to not come to school because we had not paid our fees. I think that was GSS2. And my dad had to send me to a friend who lived in the area
Yeah.
to get money to pay.
Yeah.
And I think after GSS2 was when probably we came to terms with the fact that we can't fund this thing. And then we moved, transition from the private school to government school.
Yeah.
The school was in Oshodi then. An interesting thing was that my first day in the school, the class captain of my class, who of course was best man at my wedding.
Oh.
Well, at that time, he was class captain, and my class was where they kept all the miscreants. Yeah, so they had to pick someone like them who had the firm hand to be
Yeah.
captain. So while talking to a lady, he tried to scare the lady with a stone. So he bounced the stone on the desk just to scare her.
Yeah.
Interesting, the stone bounced and it gave her a cut in her head. And I was like, God, what kind of school have I? But yeah, but it was interesting because it was part of what shaped me. Because I'd gone to a private school and then I'm now in a government school and I could understand the difference. I appreciated what my dad had done up till that time. But then all the trainings up to that time then tell me, okay, you are here now. How do you make lemonade from this lemon?
Yeah.
And in less than a year, of course, I become part of the many, became friends. But education was one thing I kept my eye on. And then within the year, of course, I distinguished myself in the class, in the school academically. By the time we went to SS1, science class and all of that, I stood out there throughout my time there, and it helped my belief in myself that because I could focus on my studies, and there was that natural, of course, initially you feel that natural brilliance.
Yeah.
But then when you got to the senior secondary school, you had to focus on your books. But there was that distinguishing factor about being brilliant, and and that helped me believe that I could achieve anything that I wanted. But then something happened as a result of that. Because I was good academically, a few people in the circle of my father, family started to notice. I think it was after I did GC at SS2,
Okay.
and then I passed all my papers. There's one of my dad's friend, not so close friend, but it was like family too. He then heard about me and he asked me to come and see him. Anytime I go to see him, it's like 5K. In fact, interestingly, his office was in this area at the time.
Oh.
So I'll come all the way to the area.
Yeah.
And then he would, once I go, hello, how's everything?
5K.
5K.
This was when?
This was 2000 and probably 1998 or 1999.
5K as a 1998.
Or 1999.
Oh my God.
I think 1998 or 1999. Around that.
Was that
time.
5K was giving you part of the things that encouraged you to be a doctor?
So that 5K was like a reward for being good.
Okay.
So it looked like this education, that's the way out, is beginning to pay off. Because then now I have somebody else who's believing in me enough to give me money each time.
Because you stood out in school.
Because I stood out in school.
Oh, lovely.
Then my mentor now, that's how he also came up. Because he also grew up in the village. My dad made, of course, fantastic success. And that's Dr. Abibola Mtoye.
Okay.
A few people that would watch this would definitely know him. And then I already said I wanted to be a doctor. That's another interesting story. So while I was in primary school, we had this chat, A to Z.
Okay.
A for Apple.
Yes.
So we had this for professions.
Okay.
So D was doctor, E was engineer. For whatever reason, I just fixated on D and E. So it was either I'll be a doctor or an engineer. Small child in primary school playing.
Oh.
In junior secondary school, I met this friend, a guy who became friends. So he said he wanted to be a doctor.
Yeah.
But because I liked and a friend of mine, I also said I wanted to be a doctor. Interestingly, I ended up being a doctor. He's an engineer now.
Wow.
He went to Ife, he finished from Ife. All right. So he now, senior secondary school, so now I wanted to be a doctor. Dr. Abibola Mtoye is a successful doctor. He's the most successful doctor known to my dad.
Yeah.
And then he spoke to him, and then he finished from University of Ibadan. So he told my dad. At the time, my dad used to say it. It was later I found out it was one that told him that it is University of Ibadan or nothing. Yeah, and then of course I wrote JAM, UI. I wrote JAM, that was 2000 JAM, and then UI lost a session. Yeah, so we didn't resume until January of 2022.
Okay.
So in the following year, I wrote another JAM, chose LUT. I was on the list in LUT. And that was when it was UI or nothing. Because then it was like, okay, I stayed in Mushin. I could walk from my house to LUT.
Okay.
Do you understand?
Yeah.
And then I had friends there because I'd been thinking of, okay, I want to be a doctor. When we had some lessons in secondary school. I met a few guys who were medical students. So I became friends with them. They used to come and teach us and all. So I go to LUT to see them, trying to, imagining myself becoming a doctor and the likes. So it was either UI or Unilag, but then because my dad, my mentor, and then said UI. And one of the things I want to say about that is part of my story, which I probably will chronicle with, is being blessed with first the gift of family. Because my dad, my mom played an integral role in terms of showing care and love, and then encouraging me, and then of course showing that this education is the key out of here.
Yeah.
Is the key for the next level of whatever you want to do. And then the next was the gift of Then I talked about the uncle that would give me
Yes,
5K.
yes.
It was money. I was happy. It was given, but it was an encouragement. As a reward, a positive reinforcement of you're doing well academically. I'm happy,
Yes.
and all of that. Then, of course, mentorship, which was the beginning at the time when Dr. Olamide was like, go to UI. I didn't know that. So while I was waiting for UI, then I was attending the Fountain of Life Church. We used to have Thursday showers. So Thursday shower is like, I think either 10 to 12 or 12 to 2. Interesting, my dad's office is the next street. So I go to his office because I wasn't doing anything.
Yeah.
Then I go for Thursday shower. I was during one of those sessions that actually got baptized in the Holy Spirit.
Oh.
And it was then that I started to understand that Christianity is not just about avoiding hell, but bringing down God's kingdom here. That whatever gifts you've had, however good you are, if you layer it on the Holy Spirit, there's an amplifying factor. And I think, and it was so good because I got that before I got into the university. And that helped me throughout my stay in university because, truth be told, brilliant all throughout school, primary school, doing very well, top 3 students, secondary school, top 3 students. Either you read so much or you didn't read so much, you're good and all that. Then we got in medicine and then realized that, see, it's a bunch of superstars from everywhere. We had guys from the special school in Sule Akad. We had guys from different schools. We were all in the same class.
Yeah.
And the jam we wrote was 2,000 jam. And that jam was when there was massive, the pass rate was so low because I think they were able to cut out a lot of malpractices. So most of the guys that were getting in were guys that knew stuff.
Yeah.
And then we got into school and then start 100 level. We still did chemistry, did biology, had first class grades.
Yeah.
But once you get to 200 level, that goes away. So you start physiology, biochemistry, and all of that. And there's always one test. It's called the physiology test. It's the first test. And then you do the test. And then the highest score over 100 was about 53, 54.
Wow.
And then for the first time, I scored below 50. I failed for the first time. And then I was like, wow. Jokingly, I used to say that it is FSP that brought me to university, family support program. Because the funds are from my parents,
Yes.
but then a few people, like I'd mentioned, would give. So I can't fail and go back.
Yeah.
In my family, I'm like shining star. Like this is the star. You can't go back. And then I had to interestingly sit down. Like there's a possibility I might not make it out of here. And that was a serious conversation. You won't understand if all throughout your life you've been succeeding. It's just a test. It's not even an exam. But because the reality now sets in, because you've heard a lot of stories that a lot of people who are outliers, high flyers come in and then they fail out.
Yes.
And then I was, and that was at the point where I had to then now sit down, like, okay, what brought me here? And the first principle of really thinking through your problems, that was the first time I learned it.
Yeah.
I started to look at it. What brought me here was, yes, brilliance, one, but it wasn't just that.
Yeah.
It was hard work, 2. You understand? 3rd was understanding what needed to be done and then doing it. But then what I now have now is God, the Holy Spirit, to show me how to do it. So I sat down and then I realized that just being intelligent
Was not enough.
will not get you through medical. In fact, you will fail out of medical school. But being disciplined, dedicated, grit. Because medicine is not mathematics. Medicine is, they've studied the human body. They've said for anatomy where the nerves will pass at this point. They're not trying to work it out.
Yeah.
There's no other way to arrive at that. If the nerve passes this point at this and this way. So you have to learn it. You have to memorize it. And it was that day I looked at my class and I said, this particular lady would be the best graduate student because she had all the things I thought about. She had it and she was gifted with it. And she was the best graduating student in our class. I knew it that day that I sat down and analyzed it. I looked at data points and then analyzed it and then said she was good because she had a photographic memory. She reads now. 2 weeks later, she can still remember everything. But you read now, tomorrow, maybe you remember only 80% of what you read. But she had that. So I understood, what do I need to do to get from this point to that point? So it meant I had to read, I had to pay attention in class. So I started doing all of those things. When we got to clinicals, I also understood that medicine is apprenticeship. At the end of the day, yes, you understand the theory. What can you do? You understand? That was really important to how I applied myself throughout medical school. So that is me arriving at the medical school, and I think that was some of the things that got me throughout medical school, then arriving to become a doctor.
So since you were a young adult,
yes,
or will you say teenager,
yes,
you've been having meeting with yourself.
Yes.
That, okay, this is where I am right now.
Yes.
If I continue like this,
yes,
I can't let it succeed.
Yeah.
And that's really beautiful, because I feel like it's one of the things that is actually very rare. Even with adults, it's very hard to even see some adults call themselves to other that the way you are going, you might not actually succeed, or you might not see the end of this thing. So that is really, really remarkable. So was it one of those conference calls you had with yourself that you realized that you were going to own your hospital early enough?
That's another beautiful story. So, yes. So, let me take something from what I've said also.
Okay.
Now, because of also the environment I grew up, I used to escape a lot in my mind.
Okay.
So I could sit here and I'm somewhere else. And the beautiful thing of how I escape is that I'm trying to paint a picture of things I would like to see. I didn't know that's what I was doing at the time. Because I could remember those times. I remember that. So my in the early years, my mom worked on the island.
Okay.
She worked in the bank in the early years before, because the bank actually closed down, and then she now did a few things and all of, I didn't even say that growing up. We sold everything possible. Frozen fish, ice block, we grinded pepper. And because I'm the firstborn, I do that. We got a shop, we're selling gari, rice, and all of that. I remember so many times waking up early for weekends to go open up before she joins me and all of that. So I used to hear about islands. So for me, island is not a land surrounded by water. Island is HIGH land, you get? And then a place with so many high rising and all of that, which is true, but I didn't see it at the time. So I used to escape and see myself live in those places. I used to do, and sometimes when I do that, I get there and try and walk my way back. And at the time I was thinking of being a doctor, and like, so how do I do this? So when I got in medical school, as we got to 400, 500 level, when we do this surgery posting where we get to join in theater, and then we have a changing room. So in that changing room, you have guys in the 4th year, 5th year, and the 6th year together. So the guys in 6th year were always lamenting about medicine.
Okay.
There was a lot of discouraging stories about becoming a doctor, not having time for yourself, not making enough to actually support your family. And it looked like this profession that I've been so excited all my life, and the stories I'm hearing is like that of like, there's nothing good about it. And I was in that position, in that situation, when I also heard about an NGO, Pro Health International. Then they would go to villages and then offer free healthcare. And then they were taking medical students to come along. That was my 5th year. So you go, you join them, assist them and all of that. So I went to Oron in, I think, Cross River, because we did Oron and Uruan in that same. So on the first day, because my medical student, I joined the doctors. We had theater, they were operating and all. So we joined them. So most cases were malaria, cough, and all. Anything that was much more than that, there were senior doctors. We sat down in a row, and then so that day I must have seen about 50 patients. Yes, my hand felt like it was going to pull out of the socket from the joint. And I'm like, no matter how fantastic. So I got back to the hotel room, and that's where the meeting came up. No matter how fantastic a doctor I become, I'm limited by the fact that I'm one person. I can't see more than what one person can physically see, humanly possible. So if I want to see a lot, and then the picture of that, because we sat down on a long bench, a long table.
Yeah.
So we all sat down. So I looked at it and said that I saw 50. We probably must have been about 10, 15 or 20 or 13, 15. I'm not
Okay.
sure. So let's say 10 and each of us saw 50. That means we all saw 500.
Yes.
It means that the best way I can reach out to more people is actually create, that's the Holy Spirit at the time, create a system that can multiply my effort. And that was the genesis. So the genesis of the hospital started from creating a system to help people. And then as I started working on, and the Holy Spirit working with me, it then became to actually set up my own practice. Right. So that started that.
Yeah.
But in school, during our lecturers, most of them, when they finished, they went into residency to specialize, and then they started to become lecturers. And a good number of them, not all of them,
Okay.
were always trying to discourage going to set up private practice. They talked about those people as failures, or those who left to do business or one thing or the other.
Yeah.
Luckily, we only had one doctor at the time, or surgeon, an orthopedic surgeon, who had his own practice. So when he comes, his sessions are usually very interesting.
Yeah.
Because he's happy.
Yeah.
And then I'm trying to say, okay, this guy is happy. These guys don't seem like they're happy. Do you get? And then my mentor came back on scene in my 5th year. So he invited me over to his house. Then he asked me, after you graduate as a doctor, what do you want to do? So I looked at him because it was the age range of those my lecturers. I was like, this man actually probably thinks like these other guys. And I don't want to discourage him. These are like my, how you say, my helper, those kind of things. But one of the guys that, men that really liked what I was doing and who I was becoming. So when he said, I just told him that, I told him what I felt he wanted to hear. That when I finished, I was going to be a cardiothoracic surgeon and all that.
Okay.
So he looked at me. And I can't forget. He said, there was a brief pause.
Yeah.
He said, I'm going to tell you what I would tell my son if he was the one I was asking. And then he went on how getting into private practice was more lucrative because he said, I know your family.
Yeah.
What your family needs is not more books. Do you understand?
Yes. Okay.
What your family needs is you creating wealth that can help your dad, your mom, and then your siblings that are coming for. And when he was done saying, I was so happy.
Like that's what you really wanted.
Yes. Till today, when he tells that story, he says it that I wanted to do something else. He was one that redirected, which is fine. And I let him have it. But I actually went and said I was so happy.
Yes.
And he went ahead to, apparently, some of my lecturers were his classmates. And he went ahead to actually tell me one or two and compare.
Yeah.
Because he was trying so hard to convince me out of where I was not even going before. So, and he said something, he said, when you finish, come work with me and I'll show you how to do this. And that was when I got the next direction.
Your life.
So as much as I knew I wanted to start my practice, now I know where I'm going to learn from. So he said, as soon as you finished, come join me. And then from that point on, even though in class, we all talk, like, what are you going to do? But I kept, and he also advised, try and keep this to you, because some people will seek to discourage you, not out of the fact that they don't want you to succeed. It's probably most likely out of love, but based on what they understood. So I kept it. He started giving me books to read, books on personal development, and I would use calendars. You know how we used to use calendars to cover books?
Yes.
You understand? So I use calendar to cover it, and I'll go with those books. They don't know, they think they're medical books, but they're self-help book, personal development books.
Wow.
When he travels, whenever he comes, he calls me. I'm happy to. When he calls me, I go, I'll eat pounded jam. You follow me, and then 1K transport. It's 5 naira from the bus up to UCH. But 1K, so I'm usually happy. I got this, a lot of, and then, so the focus then was like, finish school, do my house job, internship. I'm going straight to work for him because I want to learn how to start the hospital, and I want to start my hospital. And that was like that. So I did my internship. I tried to actually work with him with my NYC. It didn't work out. So I did 1 year NYC. And then after that, in fact, I finished, pass out was, let's say, this week.
Yeah.
The following Monday, on Sunday, I moved into the hospital. The following Monday, I started working with him.
Wow.
Thank you so much for that. And one thing that I can hear clearly is the power of mentorship.
Yeah.
How the right mentor can show you the way to go and actually hold your hand through it
Yes.
all. And I want us to talk about the part of working closely with a founder. If you know you want to go into a business eventually, not necessarily even that line of business, but working closely with a founder, because there's a difference between working with a multinational and working with a man that has built a system, that has built a structure for their business. So I want you to talk about how important it is and why it is necessary.
Yeah. So thank you. Fantastic question. Because one thing I want to say is that no matter how wonderful a mentor is,
Yeah.
as a mentee, you have a responsibility. Because sometimes people say that mentors are not doing what they're meant to do. But if for someone to qualify to be a mentor
Yeah.
is someone who is succeeding at something, most times they're busy. So there's a way you relate with them. So let me tell you, this my story is a typical example.
Okay.
So he told me in his house, finish, become a doctor,
Yeah.
come and work for me, and I will teach you how to run your practice. So I joined November 2011. Yeah, 20, yes, 2010, November 2010. Then as at February 2011, I thought because while I was in school, I used to call you, give me books. I thought we were supposed to be doing tutorials
Yeah.
now, see how this is going. It's
Yeah.
not. So that day he came to Lagos. I was the one on duty. I was downstairs. So he came into the reception. He sat by me. I said, "Excuse me, sir. You said that you asked me to come here. You said you're going to teach me how to, but I've been here. We've not had any session." He said, "Don't worry. Just continue working. If situations or circumstances will permit and you're able to get to the level of leadership, then you understand it more." So it's typically told me that, see, you're not going to just come and I'll hand this
Yes.
on the platter of gold. First time when we went for interview, I interviewed when before going to the NYC. As he was coming up, I stood up with someone I knew. I wanted to go greet him, but I saw his countenance. He greeted everybody the same way. So okay, I said, okay, no favoritism
Yeah.
here. And we went in for the interview. I was the youngest. Every other person had finished NYC, been working. And he didn't tell the other guys on the panel that he knew me. But at the end, they needed to pick two doctors. And everybody on the panel said, these are the two doctors, myself and one other doctor. That he was so proud of it that I found out later that I even told my dad that your son came and he did very well. So it showed me from the first get go that say you have to earn this.
Yeah.
So when he told me that in February, okay, I was like, okay, no problem. And then from that point, we didn't have any conversation again until sometime in May. And at that time, the branch where we're in, we're not doing so well. And they wanted to restructure to bring someone from another branch so that he could come help the branch. But they needed to take someone to replace him. So I was the youngest doctor. So he had said that he was going to take me to the other branch. They had decided that the day before. So he said he was going to come and talk to me himself. But by the time he got to work the next day, the head of the admin, the head of nursing, went to have a meeting with him. Sir, you said we're not doing too well. And one of the people you've identified said the department is probably doctors are not treating patients well and all of that, and driving the hospital in the right direction. But sir, the person you want to take from here, you want to take to another place, is actually our best performing doctor. I didn't even know that. But because I had the goal, at the time I thought I was going to work for him for 1 year.
Yeah.
I'll learn everything 1 year and then go. And then it was that time he now called sent for me. I thought, I was told, I'd been pre-informed that he was going to call me down. So okay, so I'm going to and it's in Ibadan. I'm going to leave my mom in Lagos and go to Ibadan and all of that. And by the time I got to his office, it was a different story. He was really pleasantly surprised and he was happy. And that also was another encouragement for me. And it showed that because I knew that I know him, but I needed to impress him, not just for him, for myself, and to give me that access. And that was in May. And by August, because the structure of his business is the doctors that become the medical director. By July that same year, I'd been appointed to be the medical director of one of the branches in Lagos.
Wow.
Yeah, so within 9 months, I became a medical director. And what, like I said, the driving force was I knew where I was going. So I wasn't there like every other doctors. I was just there to earn a pay. I was there learning, so I was in everything. And because I became medical, it told me in February, circumstances would permit, so stars aligned for me. I became medical director. I became part of management. I started to see everything. So that gave me another level of hands-on experience. It was at that point I realized the foolishness of thinking I needed to learn for 1 year. I realized I needed to learn for years. And that's what 3 years after that of working was when I then realized that, okay, it was time to go and set up.
So by the time you knew it was time to go set up, did you have all the resources? Did you add?
I don't think we've done anything in life up till this time. In fact, I was still telling my wife that, see, the next thing we're going to do, we have to have more than the money before we go and do it, because it's been a faith work all through. But one thing I learned working with him, and sorry, let me just answer, working with a founder is very important than when you work with a place where the multinational or whatever it is, you learn better. But if you find yourself in a system, you can still relate with the founder by relating with the system, because the founder developed that system. So for me, I didn't work closely with him. I worked closely with the system he built. But by working closely with the system he built, I rose in the ranks so that I became head of one of the branches. At that point, I started to work closely with him. Do you get what I'm trying to say? So how did I even know? 2013, December, I was asked to then go become the medical director of the headquarters in Lagos in January. And I think when I got there, when you grow with a place, you really might not be able to understand how well you've grown until you're taken out of there to go and run it. And the headquarters then had, I think, over 70 members of staff. And then at that point, they had issues with discipline and all of that. In fact, some people felt that this gentle guy that does not talk, will he be able to handle? And then in 2 or 3 months, we drove up their numbers. The numbers went up, discipline, and a lot of things. It was then that the Holy Spirit came back to me, see, now you have learnt. As in, by going to a place that was not so much in chaos, but we were not doing so well, I was able to transform. Was at that point, I then said, okay, it's time. Myself and my wife, which she was with me all through, and then we came to that point that, okay, this is it. And okay, I'd been saving, but I didn't have all the money. My wife asked me, what is one thing that is the most expensive as a single unit? She asked me. I told her. In the May of that year, which was my birthday, she bought it as a birthday gift. I said, thank you very much, but I know what you're trying to tell me. That it's time to go. If this is the most, as a single unit, when you put other things, the better. And then we started to make plans, started to figure out where and all of that. They say so much that before you start any business, you have like 6 months salary. By the time we needed we felt we needed extra 1 million to start. I met my in-law at the time, said he had 500,000. He loaned me that 500,000. That later will give me the other 500. So the 500,000, we needed to buy a machine. We probably might not need it, but it's good to have it. It's an oxygen concern, because if you have patients, they need oxygen. We bought it for 250,000. Having 250,000 left. Up to today, we've not touched that 250,000. Because we started with the 250,000. But we've never gone less than 250,000. A month later, he came back and said, okay, he can give me the other 5. I said, no, we're fine. Because I learned one thing. By working hands-on, I learned what were the essentials. What were the needs to have as opposed to nice to have? Do you get? And how can I get some of those things? Some of our beds when we started were fabricated, which were cheaper than if you're going to buy.
But they got the job done.
And they got the job done. And we started that way, and then we built over the years. You understand? So, yes, it was faith that we didn't have to have 6 months salary, but we've learned it so much that by going through it and running his hospitals, sometimes from periods where sales were so low and we couldn't pay salaries, to when, please, I have to tell you this story. So 2012, sorry, I missed all these years, but 2012 was Occupy Nigeria, Jonathan's time. And when I took over as MD in that hospital, the sales they make, well, before I joined, they could barely pay salary with their profits.
Okay.
But because the years preceding when this doctor took over, they had enough reserve. So they were taking from the reserve, but it didn't show.
Yes.
By the time I joined, they didn't have any reserve.
Wow.
So I increased sales, but we're making enough to pay salary.
Yeah.
January came, and for 2 weeks, there was Occupy Nigeria. Meant low patient turnout, meant low sales. That was the first sign of crap.
Yeah.
We're managing. By March, my boss already felt like we're not running this place well. Because then we're not even having patients. So we have these monthly meetings, and I'm the type that comes to quote scriptures, tell them what God's going to. And I was asking God, what will I tell these people?
Yeah.
Because the meeting is usually the last Saturday of the month. And as at that time, we didn't have half of the salary. And everybody knew my boss had been disturbed and calling and all. I said, what will I tell them? I didn't know. We started the meeting with prayer and praise and worship. I prolonged the praises because as at that time, I still didn't know what to tell them.
Yeah.
So how will we stop singing? What will I say? And at the point, we started to sing the song. Eshe ibite tiber, eshe ibite bade, adupe o Jesu ibite mual. At that point, the Holy Spirit told me that, see, you're going to have all you need. And I finished and I told them that by Wednesday next week, we'll pay your salary. They did not say anything. I had to encourage them that, don't you guys have faith? Do you know the interesting thing?
Yeah.
I said we saw some people yesterday, about 3 of them, they said they'll come for admission today, so they will come. But we've been having people say that and they don't come. So they were like, that's how they, I said they are coming. Before we finished that meeting, 2 of those 3 people came. By that evening, the entire wards were full. By that evening. In fact, they stopped calling me doctor, they started calling me prophet. And by Wednesday, we were able to pay salary. That year, my boss was with the government. At the end of that year, our branch was the only branch that was not in red at the end of that year.
Wow.
In fact, the following year, he was telling the other docs that he will never forget me, because if our hospital also did not do well, probably people would tell me he didn't know how to run the hospital again. So I saw how God can, change. So, and see, you know how the bear and the lion is to David. That is one of my bears and like that. Throughout life, when I remember that, I'm like, no matter the problems that comes, God can show up for. So we did that, and then, like, just to answer your question, sorry, I like talking about this.
That was very needed.
Yeah, so we didn't have all. We even had to, but then we now realized that we didn't even need what we asked for. But it was good to also have family that could help. So we started with what we have, where we were, and then we scaled over the years.
And now you have 2 blooming.
Yes, we have 2 wonderful hospitals, and we have an NGO. You remember, the start of setting up hospital was because I was part of an outreach.
Yes.
That's why you will not be surprised that the hospital has its own NGO.
Yes.
And from the first year, we've been doing outreaches. We started August of 2014. By December 2014, we had a medical outreach in that same environment.
Lovely. So what will you say to medical students? Because there are a lot of medical students out there, and those that have even graduated and now they are doing something else, and most people have even traveled out of the country. So, but I know there are just few people that have started seeing the gaps, that are starting to understand the business in medicine. So can you mention the possible gaps and the opportunities that they can actually tap into?
Okay, so what I would say is, and I think that's very important, each person has to identify what they consider to be success. It's very important, because the fact that, and we've seen that over the years, even with my set, the fact that you graduate as a medical doctor might not necessarily mean that you practice. Some people did that for their parents. Some people did that because every other person was doing that. So, but if medicine is your choice, and then you're looking into the business side of medicine, there's a lot of opportunities in Nigeria. We even have those who are not medical doctor actually plugging into that.
Yes, sir.
Because what's going into practice and understanding and then running the business side of medicine has done for me is one of the things is, and that's by way of structure, has given me time to actually do every other thing. I will admit, from time to time, like the water is disturbed and I have to be back in there, and no problem. I don't have a problem doing that. I enjoy practice, so I do that. But time for family, time for a few other things, as it has afforded me that. You understand? Yes, to live a comfortable life. You understand? I'm not one to want a lot of things, but comfortable life for family, for my kids, is done that. And then the simple thing is this, like every other thing, understand what's going on in the system and then plug in. Where do you want to plug in? Are you going to want to set up an entire hospital to treat general patients or specialized patients? Do you want to look at maybe like we have a rising number of people in need of dialysis now? Do you want to plug in there, set up a dialysis center and have hospitals feeding? You want to set up an ICU for hospitals to feed you in and all of that. But then the most important thing is, like I said, is to understand what is going on, understand the moving parts, and then see how you can plug in. It's not just having the funds. And I've demystified it for so many doctors. You don't need to have a lot of hundreds of millions to actually start your practice. You can start with just 3 or 4 beds, which means you don't have to put so much pay so much in terms of rent, a lot of infrastructures, and then you can grow from that. So the interesting thing, the first thing is to understand what success is. Medical students, what do you consider to be success? I chose the part of starting my practice. If you want to do residency, it's not wrong. But at the end of the day, once you're done with that, what do you want to do? Because I have a few number of friends or even other specialists also looking to go into their own practice, and some people are partnering with other practices. So there's so many ways at many levels which you can plug in and then do your thing. So if you also want to travel, if you feel that is the reason, not because people are doing that, it's fine. But there's so much to be done in Nigeria, and I encourage as many people as possible that if you just take your time, learn the process, you will be fine.
I think I like the part you said, partnership, because and I've been like, there's some people that actually have the funds, but they need those with the knowledge that they can partner with to build something. While you use their knowledge, the knowledge you have, they provide the fund to build a business. Thank you so much, Dr. Bolaon, for coming to the Becoming Story. We really appreciate you for sharing your beautiful story of how you can actually have a goal from a young age, work towards it, and build something so beautiful and meaningful. And to our viewers watching, thank you so much for joining us on Becoming Story. Don't forget that your story is still unfolding. Trust your process, never give up, and keep becoming. See you in the next video.